Picture this.
The grand hall of the Blackthorne Palace. It's nighttime and the moon is full because of course it is. This is a werewolf kingdom after all. Torches flicker along the walls, casting dancing shadows across the stone. The air is thick with tension, with whispered conversations, with barely concealed excitement. And at the center of it all, lying on a ceremonial bed draped in black silk, is King Gideon Blackthorne. Motionless.
Pale.
To everyone in that room, he looks dead. His chest doesn't rise. His eyes are closed. The royal physicians have declared him gone, victim to some mysterious illness that struck him down in his prime. But here's the thing, and pay attention because this is crucial. Gideon's not really dying. He's not even sick. He's just pretending. Can you imagine that? The most powerful alpha in the realm, lying there completely still, completely aware, listening to every single word being spoken around his corpse. And what does he hear? Oh man, what does he hear? His council members, the ones who swore eternal loyalty, who bent the knee and called him their king, they're already arguing about succession. Already plotting. Already dividing up his kingdom like vultures circling a carcass. His chancellor, Aldrich, we'll get to him later, and trust me, you're going to hate this guy, is speaking in that smooth, oily voice of his about, honoring the king's legacy, while simultaneously suggesting they need to move forward quickly with choosing a new ruler. His generals, his advisors, his so-called friends, they're not mourning. They're calculating. Planning their next moves like this is all just some elaborate chess game, and Gideon was merely a piece that's been removed from the board. Can you feel that emptiness? That crushing realization? Gideon's lying there, having to listen to the truth he always suspected but never wanted to confirm. Nobody actually cares if he lives or dies. They care about what he represents. They care about the power he wields. But him? The man beneath the crown? He might as well not exist. Now, pause for a second. How do you think you'd feel in that moment? Knowing that after everything you've done, after all the battles you've fought, all the decisions you've made, all the weight you've carried, nobody in that room actually cares about you. Would it break you? Would it make you angry? Or would it just confirm what you'd always feared deep down? Gideon's heart is heavy, but here's the question. Is he tougher than he lets on? Or is this his breaking point? I want you to really consider this because it matters for everything that comes next. This man has spent his entire life building walls. Emotional fortifications so thick that nothing could penetrate them. He learned early that showing weakness meant death. That caring too much meant getting hurt. So he became cold. Became distant. Became the king everyone feared but nobody loved. And now, in this moment, those walls are serving their purpose. Nobody can see him breaking inside because nobody's looking. They're too busy planning their own futures. But then something happens that Gideon never could have anticipated. There's a commotion at the entrance to the Great Hall. Raised voices. The sound of struggling. The royal guards are trying to hold someone back, and whoever it is, they're fighting with desperate, frantic energy. Please, a voice cries out. Please, I must see him. I must. It's a woman's voice.
Young.
Raw with emotion. And it's coming closer despite the guards' best efforts. Gideon, still maintaining his deathly stillness, feels something he hasn't felt in years.
Curiosity.
Who would fight this hard to see a dead king? What member of the court is putting on such a convincing display of grief? But it's not a court member. Oh no. When the guards finally lose their grip and a figure bursts into the hall, falling to her knees on the cold stone floor, Gideon recognizes her scent before he sees her. It's one of the palace slaves. The Omega girl who serves in the lower kitchens. What was her name again? He searches his memory. Cynthia.
Yes, Cynthia.
And just when you think you know what's going to happen, Cynthia shocks everyone with her hidden power. Don't you want to see what happens next? Subscribe, or you'll miss out on how this story twists next. And here's where everything changes. You won't believe what happens next. Actually, you know what? Maybe you will. Maybe part of you is already rooting for this moment because deep down, we all want to believe that someone, somewhere, would care if we were gone. That someone would fight through guards and protocol and social hierarchy just to reach us. Cynthia's on her knees, and she's a mess. Her simple servant's dress is torn from struggling with the guards. Her dark hair has fallen loose from its usual braid. Tears are streaming down her face, and these aren't the polite, dignified tears of a courtier performing grief. These are real.
Raw.
The kind of tears that come from somewhere so deep you can't control them. The entire hall has gone silent. Everyone's staring at this slave who dared to interrupt the king's death vigil. Aldrich is already moving forward, his face twisted in anger. "Remove her at once," he commands. "This is a sacred." But Cynthia doesn't let him finish. She looks up, not at Aldrich, not at the guards, but at Gideon's still form on that ceremonial bed. And she speaks. "Moon goddess," she begins, and her voice is trembling but powerful. "Moon goddess, hear my plea."
Wait.
Is she praying? Right here? In front of everyone? "I know I'm nothing," Cynthia continues, and you can hear her voice breaking. "I know I have no right to ask for anything. I'm just a slave, just an omega, just nothing. But please, please, if you can hear me, don't take him. Don't take the king." The room is completely frozen now. Even Aldrich has stopped mid-gesture, because what's happening here is unprecedented. Slaves don't pray for kings. They don't interrupt royal proceedings. They certainly don't show this kind of raw, genuine emotion for someone so far above their station. But Cynthia isn't done. Oh no, she's just getting started. "He's more than they know," she says, and now she's speaking directly to the moon goddess, but also to everyone in that room. "He's more than this crown, more than this throne. He carries the weight of thousands, and he does it alone. Every day I see him. I see how tired he is, how heavy his burden is, how everyone takes and takes and takes from him, and nobody ever asks if he's okay." Can you feel that? Can you feel the shift in the air? Because something's happening here. Something profound. Gideon, still playing dead, is screaming inside his own head. "Stop.
Stop talking.
You're going to get yourself killed. These people will destroy you for this." But Cynthia doesn't stop. "I'm offering everything," she says, and now her hands are clasped together, pressed against her heart. "Take my life instead. Take my years, my breath, my future. I don't care. Just let him live. Let him have more time. Let him find the peace he deserves. Please." And here's the moment. The turning point. The instant when everything Gideon thought he knew about the world cracks right down the middle. Because Cynthia's prayer? It's not just desperation. It's not just words thrown into the void. Something responds to her plea. The room suddenly fills with light, soft, silver, ethereal. The kind of light that shouldn't exist in the physical world. It's coming from Cynthia herself, radiating from her chest where her hands are clasped, spreading outward in waves that make the very air shimmer. The courtiers gasp. Some step back. Others fall to their knees because they recognize what this is. Divine magic. Moon magic. The kind that hasn't been seen in this kingdom for generations.
And Gideon?
Oh man. Our Alpha King, who's supposed to be dead? He feels it. Feels the warmth of that power washing over him. Feels it reaching inside him. Touching something he thought had died years ago. His heart. The man who's spent years building walls. Those walls you and I talked about earlier? They just cracked. Not broke. Not yet, but cracked. Because somebody saw him.
Really saw him.
Not the king, not the alpha, not the symbol of power. Her. This slave girl. This nobody. She saw the man underneath all of that and she thought he was worth saving. When was the last time someone saw you like that? Really saw you? Not what you can do for them. Not your title or your status or your usefulness. Just you. The person you are when nobody's watching. Tell me in the comments because I think we all need to remember that feeling. We all need to remember what it's like to be truly seen. For Gideon, this moment is devastating in the best possible way. He's lying there, feeling this impossible warmth, this genuine care from someone who has absolutely no reason to care about him. Someone he's never shown kindness to. Someone he's barely noticed. And she's offering her life for his. The light begins to fade, and Cynthia collapses forward, exhausted from whatever she just did. The guards move to grab her, but before they can, something else happens. Gideon's eyes open. Gideon thought he was untouchable until Cynthia's prayer shook him to his core. You don't want to miss what happens next. Subscribe now, or risk missing out on the shocking turn of events. Now imagine the chaos. Picture absolute pandemonium breaking out in that great hall. The king, who is definitely, absolutely, 100% dead according to the royal physicians? He's sitting up. He's breathing. He's alive. The courtiers are losing their minds. Some are backing away in fear. Is this some kind of dark magic? Some are rushing forward in false joy. My king, the moon goddess has blessed us. And Aldrich? Oh, you should see Aldrich's face. The man looks like he's just watched his entire world crumble, which, let's be honest, he kind of has. But Gideon? He's not looking at any of them. His steel-gray eyes are locked on one person, and one person only. Cynthia. She's barely conscious, slumped on the floor, the last remnants of that silver light flickering around her like dying embers. And Gideon realizes something that makes his blood run cold. She meant it. She really meant it. She was genuinely offering to trade her life for his. Enough. Gideon's voice cuts through the chaos like a blade. The single word carries such authority that the entire room falls silent immediately. Everyone out. Now. But my lord, Aldrich begins, that oily smoothness back in his voice. We must discuss your miraculous recovery. The people need to. I set out, Gideon roars, and there's the alpha command behind it now. The kind of supernatural compulsion that makes every werewolf in the room, except for Cynthia, interestingly, feel an overwhelming urge to obey. They scatter. Courtiers, guards, advisors, all of them fleeing the great hall like leaves before a storm. Even Aldrich retreats, though not before shooting one last calculating look at Cynthia's collapsed form. And then they're alone. The most powerful man in the kingdom, and a slave girl who just performed the impossible. Gideon rises from the ceremonial bed, and for the first time in longer than he can remember, his movements are uncertain. He's faced armies without flinching. He's made decisions that affected thousands without hesitation. But right now, approaching this fragile Omega on his floor, he doesn't know what to do. He kneels beside her, the king kneeling, and gently turns her onto her back. Her eyes flutter open, unfocused and exhausted. Why? The question comes out rougher than he intended. Why would you do that? You don't even know me. Cynthia's laugh is weak, barely more than a breath. Everyone knows you, my lord. No. Gideon shakes his head. They know the king. They know the crown. They don't know me. So why? And here's where we learn something crucial about Cynthia. Something that explains everything and nothing all at once. Because, she whispers, I see you every day. In the early mornings when you walk the battlements alone. In the evenings when you sit in the library, reading reports by candlelight long after everyone else has gone to bed. I see how you never rest. How you carry everything. How you sacrifice everything for people who would abandon you in a heartbeat. Let's stop for a second. What do you think is going through Gideon's head right now? This woman he's never really noticed has been watching him, seeing him, understanding him in a way that nobody else has bothered to try. How does that feel? Tell me, because I think this is the moment when Gideon starts to understand that maybe, just maybe, he's been wrong about everything. You're not just some weak Omega slave, Gideon says slowly, because he's starting to piece it together. That power you just used. That was divine magic. Moon magic. Do you know how rare that is? How impossible? Cynthia tries to sit up, and Gideon helps her, his hands gentle in a way they've never been with anyone. I didn't know I could do it, she admits. I couldn't let you die. I couldn't. But you were willing to die yourself. It's not a question. It's a statement of fact that Gideon still can't quite wrap his mind around. A life like mine, Cynthia says softly, isn't worth much anyway. But yours? Your life matters. The kingdom needs you. The people need you. I need you to stop talking like that. The words come out more forcefully than Gideon intended, and he sees Cynthia flinch slightly. He softens his tone. Your life matters. Don't ever say it doesn't. There's something happening between them in this moment. Can you feel it? It's like watching two puzzle pieces that were cut from the same picture finally finding each other. Gideon, who spent his whole life believing nobody could see past his crown. Cynthia, who spent her whole life believing she was invisible. And somehow, impossibly, they see each other. But here's the thing about divine magic. It always comes with a price. Cynthia gasps suddenly, her hand flying to her chest. The silver light flickers again, but this time it's different. Darker. More chaotic. What's wrong? Gideon demands, and there's genuine fear in his voice now.
Fear.
The Alpha King is afraid. The spell. Cynthia manages to get out between gasps. It's not finished. The moon goddess, she accepted my offer, but the transfer, it's killing me. And just like that, everything changes again. Because Gideon realizes what's happening. Cynthia didn't just pray for his life. She actually managed to create a genuine divine bargain. Her life force for his. But the magic is too powerful. It's tearing her apart from the inside. No, Gideon says, and his voice is hard now. Determined.
No.
I don't accept this. I didn't ask for the sacrifice. It's done, Cynthia whispers. My lord, please just remember me as someone who cared. I said a no. And here's where we see the real Gideon Blackthorne. Not the cold king. Not the calculating alpha. But the man who, when pushed to the absolute edge, when faced with losing the first person who's ever truly seen him, refuses to accept fate. He gathers Cynthia into his arms, and he does something he's never done in his entire life. He begs. Moon goddess. His voice echoes through the empty hall. If you're listening, if you're real, I'm the one asking now. Not as a king. Not as an alpha. As a man. Take back whatever you took from me. Give it to her. She deserves to live more than I do. Nothing happens. Please. Gideon's voice cracks, and there are tears, actual tears, streaming down his face now. I'll give anything. Everything. My crown, my power, my throne. Just save her. Please. And then, in the silence that follows, a voice. Not spoken aloud, but felt in the soul. The moon goddess herself, responding to a prayer that has nothing to do with duty or power or sacrifice, and everything to do with something much simpler. Love. The silver light returns, but this time it envelopes both of them. Gideon feels something shift inside him. Not dying, but changing. Transforming. And Cynthia, in his arms, gasps as the chaotic, painful magic suddenly smooths out, becomes gentle, becomes right. When the light fades this time, they're both still breathing. Both still alive. But they're also both changed in ways they don't yet understand. Cynthia looks up at Gideon, her eyes wide with wonder. You saved me. No, Gideon says, and there's something soft in his voice now. Something that wasn't there before. You saved me first. I was just returning the favor. What they don't know yet, what they can know, is that in that moment, the moon goddess didn't just save both their lives. She bound them together in a way that goes beyond any mate bond, beyond any magical connection ever seen before. They are, for better or worse, now part of each other's destiny. But destiny is a funny thing. Because while they're having this profound moment in the Great Hall, in the shadows of the palace, Aldrich is making plans. Plans that involve eliminating the slave girl who just became the most dangerous person in the kingdom. After all, someone who can perform divine magic? Someone the king would beg for? Someone who could potentially have more influence over Gideon than anyone else? That's not a person. That's a threat. And Aldrich has made a career out of eliminating threats. I know you're hooked. Who wouldn't be? If you want to find out what happens when everything shifts in the kingdom, hit that subscribe button so you can stay with us through every twist and turn. Okay, let's talk about Cynthia's past. Because you're probably wondering, how does a slave develop the ability to channel divine magic? Where did she come from? And why, out of everyone in that palace, was she the one who could see Gideon for who he really was? Here's what nobody knows. what Cynthia herself barely remembers. She wasn't always a slave. 20 years ago, in a small settlement on the outskirts of the kingdom, there was a temple. Not a grand cathedral or anything like that, just a modest stone building where a small group of priestesses served the moon goddess. These women were special. They were chosen from birth, marked by the goddess herself with the ability to channel her power. Moon priestesses, they were called, and they were respected throughout the land. Among them was a young woman named Lyanna. She was beautiful, kind, and possessed the strongest connection to the moon goddess anyone had seen in generations. She could heal the sick, bless crops, even predict future events through her dreams. The people loved her. But Lyanna made one critical mistake. She fell in love. His name was Marcus, a warrior from a visiting pack. He wasn't anyone special, just a good man with a kind heart and a smile that made Lyanna forget every vow she'd ever taken. Moon priestesses weren't supposed to marry, weren't supposed to have children. Their lives belonged to the goddess. But Lyanna chose love anyway. She left the temple, gave up her powers, or so she thought, and married Marcus in secret. And 9 months later, she gave birth to a daughter, Cynthia. Now, here's where it gets complicated. The moon goddess doesn't typically punish her priestesses for choosing love. That's not her style. But there are others who do. Other priestesses who saw Lyanna's choice as a betrayal, who believed that her abandonment of her sacred duty deserved consequences. So they cursed the child. Little Cynthia, barely a day old, was cursed to forget her heritage, to live as an Omega, the lowest rank in werewolf society, and to never access the divine power that should have been her birthright. Until tonight. Until the moment when love and desperation and sheer force of will broke through barriers that were supposed to be unbreakable. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go back to the present. Gideon has moved Cynthia to his private chambers. Not the royal bedroom. That would cause too much talk, but to a guest suite that's nicer than anywhere Cynthia has ever stayed in her entire life. There's a 4-poster bed with actual silk sheets. A fireplace that's already warming the room. Windows that look out over the kingdom, showing a view Cynthia has only ever imagined. She's lying on the bed now, still weak from the magical ordeal but alive. Stable. And Gideon is sitting in a chair beside her, watching over her like a guardian angel. Or maybe a wolf guarding something precious. You should rest, Cynthia says softly. My lord, you don't need to stay here. Stop calling me that, Gideon replies, and his voice is tired. When it's just us, call me Gideon. Cynthia's eyes widen. I couldn't possibly. You saved my life by offering yours. I think we're past formalities, don't you? There's a long silence. The fire crackles. Outside, the moon continues its journey across the sky. Why did you fake your death? Cynthia finally asks the question that's been burning in her mind. If you weren't really dying, why make everyone think you were? And here's where we get to see Gideon's vulnerability. The thing he's been hiding from everyone, including himself. I wanted to know, he says simply. I wanted to know if anyone actually cared. If, when everything was stripped away, the crown, the power, the authority, if anyone would mourn the man instead of the position. And Cynthia asks, though she already knows the answer. They were planning the succession before my body was even cold. Gideon laughs, but there's no humor in it. My council, my generals, my advisors. People I've known for decades. They couldn't wait to carve up my kingdom and take their pieces. I'm sorry, Cynthia whispers. Don't be. You showed me something tonight. You showed me that there's at least one person in this forsaken palace who sees me as more than just a title. Cynthia sits up a bit, wincing at the movement. Can I tell you something? Something I've never told anyone. Gideon nods, leaning forward. Sometimes, late at night when I'm cleaning the halls, I walk past your study. I see you in there, working by candlelight, reading reports, signing documents, making decisions that will affect thousands of people. And you always look so alone. Her voice is barely above a whisper now. I used to wonder if anyone ever told you that you were doing a good job. If anyone ever said thank you. If anyone ever just sat with you. Something breaks in Gideon's chest. Not painfully, but like ice cracking in spring. No one ever has, he admits. Then I'm telling you now, Cynthia says, and she reaches out to take his hand. It's a bold gesture, a slave touching the king. But neither of them pulls away. You're doing an incredible job. Under impossible circumstances, you've kept this kingdom together. You've protected people who don't deserve your protection. You've sacrificed your own happiness for the good of others. And thank you. Thank you for being the kind of leader who cares enough to carry that burden. If you're wondering whether Gideon cries, the answer is yes. The Alpha King, the most powerful man in the realm, sits there holding the hand of a slave girl and lets tears fall because for the first time in his entire life, someone has acknowledged the weight he carries. Who are you? He asks when he can speak again. Really? Because you're not just some slave. That much is clear now. Cynthia shakes her head. I don't know. I've always just been this.
A slave.
An omega. But tonight, when I prayed for you, I felt something. Like a door opening in my mind. Like there's a part of me I never knew existed. The divine magic, Gideon says. You shouldn't have been able to do that. Moon priestesses train for decades to channel power like that. But you did it instinctively, out of pure emotion. Is that bad? I don't know, Gideon admits. But I know someone who might. There's an old woman who lives in the northern mountains. A seer. She's been alive for over 200 years and has seen things that would make your blood run cold. If anyone can tell us what happened tonight, it's her. You want to take me to a seer? Cynthia asks incredulously. I want to protect you, Gideon corrects. Because when word of this gets out, and it will get out, people are going to come for you. Some will want to use your power. Others will want to destroy you because they fear it. Either way, I need to understand what we're dealing with.
We.
He said we. Like they're in this together. Cynthia should probably be afraid. She should probably be overwhelmed. But instead, she feels safe. For the first time in her entire life, she feels like someone is on her side. There's something else, Gideon says, and his voice takes on a harder edge. My Chancellor Aldrich. Did you see how he looked at you after you prayed? Cynthia nods. He looked angry. Frightened. He's dangerous, Gideon says bluntly. I've suspected for a while that he's been manipulating events behind the scenes. Financial discrepancies, policy changes that benefit his allies, even some suspicious deaths in the palace. But I've never had proof. And until tonight, I didn't realize how deep his corruption goes. Why keep him around then? Because I needed to see who his allies are.
Who he's working with. But now.
Gideon's grip on her hand tightens slightly. Now he's a direct threat to you. And that changes everything. Before Cynthia can respond, there's a knock at the door. Gideon instantly shifts into battle mode, positioning himself between Cynthia and the entrance. Enter, he commands. The door opens and a young woman slips in. She's dressed in the clothing of a palace maid, but there's something different about her. Something sharp in her eyes. My king, she says, dropping into a curtsy. I'm sorry to disturb you, but I have information about the slave girl. Cynthia tenses. Gideon's voice is ice. Speak. My name is Elena. I serve in the lower kitchens with Cynthia.
And I know things about her past.
Things she doesn't remember. Elena closes the door behind her and moves closer to the fire, though her eyes keep darting nervously to Gideon. You can tell she's terrified. Who wouldn't be? Standing in the private chambers of the Alpha King? But there's determination there too. Whatever she has to say, she's going to say it. Don't you think it's time for you to hit that subscribe button to be in the picture of what is about to unfold? Well, you can do it now. I knew Cynthia's mother. Elena begins, and both Gideon and Cynthia go very still. Lyanna. She came to the palace about 20 years ago, pregnant and desperate. She was running from something or someone. She took a job in the kitchens under a false name, trying to hide. My mother? Cynthia breathes. She's never known anything about her parents. As far as she knew, she'd always been an orphan. Elena nods. Lyanna gave birth to you in secret. I was just a young girl then, but I helped her. She made me promise, made me swear on the moon goddess herself, that I would watch over you if anything happened to her. What happened to her? Cynthia asks, though part of her doesn't want to know. She died when you were 6 months old, Elena says softly. There was a fire in the servants' quarters. Official reports said it was an accident. But I heard her scream before it started. Someone murdered her, Cynthia. And they tried to kill you too, but I managed to get you out. Gideon's voice is deadly calm.
Who?
I don't know for certain, Elena admits. But I have suspicions. Your mother was terrified of the priestesses from her old temple. She said they would never forgive her for leaving. For choosing love over duty. She said they would see her daughter as an abomination, a priestess's child who shouldn't exist. But why not kill Cynthia then? Gideon asks. Why let her live as a slave? Because she was cursed, Elena says, and now she's looking directly at Cynthia. I don't know the exact spell they used, but your mother told me about it before she died. They cursed you to forget who you were, to live as an omega, powerless and invisible. A fate worse than death, in their eyes. A living reminder of what happens when you betray the goddess. Cynthia feels like the ground is disappearing beneath her. Everything she thought she knew about herself is a lie. She's not just some random slave. She's the daughter of a moon priestess. She should have had a completely different life. But the curse broke tonight, Gideon says, putting the pieces together. When Cynthia prayed for me, her desperation, her love, it shattered whatever spell was holding her back. Elena nods. And now the priestesses will know. They'll sense the power being used. They'll come for her. Let them come, Gideon says, and there's wolf in his voice now. The alpha protecting his pack. Protecting what's his. I'd like to see them try to take her from me. His. Did he just call her his? Cynthia looks at Gideon, and she sees something in his eyes she's never seen before. Possessiveness, yes. But also something softer. Something that looks a lot like the beginnings of love. There's more, Elena says hesitantly. Something I overheard tonight. After you died and came back, the Chancellor met with several people in his private chambers. I was cleaning nearby and heard them talking. They're planning something. Something big. And it involves eliminating anyone who might have influence over you, my king. Cynthia, Gideon says immediately. Among others, Elena confirms. But especially her. They see her as the biggest threat. Because you showed genuine emotion for her. You revealed a weakness they can exploit. Gideon laughs, but it's not a pleasant sound. A weakness. They think caring about someone is a weakness. Isn't it? Cynthia asks quietly. In this world, in this court, doesn't caring just give people ammunition to hurt you? Maybe, Gideon admits. But I'm tired of living in a world where showing basic human decency is seen as a flaw. I'm tired of pretending to be something I'm not. He stands up, and suddenly, he's every inch the Alpha King. The leader who's commanded armies and ruled a kingdom. But now, that power is directed toward a new purpose. Elena, I need you to do something for
Me.
I need you to gather information on everyone who met with Aldrich tonight. Names, positions, anything suspicious they've been involved with.
Can you do that?
Elena nods. Yes, my lord.
Good.
And Elena? Thank you. For watching over Cynthia all these years. For keeping your promise to her mother. Elena's eyes shine with tears. She was a good woman. She deserved better. After Elena leaves, Gideon returns to Cynthia's side. She's still processing everything, her mind reeling from the revelations. I don't know who I am anymore, she whispers. Yes, you do, Gideon says firmly. You're Cynthia. You're the woman who saw a dying king and decided his life mattered more than your own. You're the person who had the courage to break through chains, literal and metaphorical, to do what you believed was right. Your mother's past, this curse, the priestesses, none of that changes who you are at your core. How can you be so sure? Because I've spent my entire life watching people change based on their circumstances. I've seen good people become corrupt when given power. I've seen cowards become brave when pushed to the edge. And you? You were at the absolute bottom of society, with every reason to be bitter and cruel and selfish. But instead, you chose compassion. You chose selflessness. That's not something circumstances create. That's who you are. Cynthia feels something warm bloom in her chest. Hope, maybe, or possibility. What happens now? She asks. Now, Gideon says, we fight back.
But not like they expect.
I'm done playing by the rules of a corrupt system. I'm done pretending to be the cold, unfeeling king they want me to be. If they want to use you against me, let them try. Because they're about to learn that protecting someone you care about makes you stronger, not weaker. And in that moment, Cynthia realizes something. This isn't just about her anymore. This isn't even just about Gideon. This is about changing an entire system. About proving that power and compassion aren't mutually exclusive. But change is never easy. And the forces arrayed against them are more dangerous than either of them fully understands. Because in his dark chambers, Aldrich is making plans of his own. Plans that involve not just eliminating Cynthia, but using her as bait to destroy Gideon once and for all. The game is in motion, and the stakes have never been higher. You know, I think it's time we really understand Gideon. Because up until now, you've seen him as the Alpha King, the powerful ruler, the man who faked his own death to test loyalty. But who is he really? What made him into this person who builds walls so high that nobody can climb them? Let me take you back. Way back. About 50 years ago. Gideon wasn't always a king. He was born a prince, sure, but not the heir. He was the second son. The spare. And in royal families, being the spare is almost worse than being nothing at all, because you're raised with all the responsibility, but none of the respect. You're the backup plan nobody wants to use. His older brother, Marcus, yeah, same name as Cynthia's father, interesting coincidence, right? Was everything a crown prince should be. Charismatic, strong, beloved by the people. Gideon worshipped him, followed him everywhere, wanted to be just like him. When Gideon was 25, there was an attack on the palace. A rival pack trying to overthrow the royal family. The kind of bloody, brutal assault that you only see once in a generation. Gideon and Marcus fought side by side, defending their home, protecting their people. And then Gideon made a choice. A split-second decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. They were cornered, both of them, surrounded by enemy wolves. There was one path to escape, but it was only wide enough for one person at a time. Marcus, being the heir, should have gone first, should have been protected at all costs. But he told Gideon to go, ordered him as both his brother and his prince. Gideon hesitated. Just for a moment. Just long enough to see the enemy closing in. And then he made the choice that every part of him screamed was wrong. He obeyed. He escaped.
He lived.
Marcus didn't. Now, here's what nobody knows except Gideon himself. In those final moments, Marcus didn't die in glorious battle. He was captured.
Tortured.
And for 3 days, while Gideon was recovering from his wounds, his brother was suffering. Screaming. Dying slowly. By the time Gideon was strong enough to lead a rescue party, it was too late. They found Marcus's body and what had been done to him. Let's just say it broke something fundamental in Gideon's soul. The kingdom needed a king. The old king, Gideon's father, was dying of grief. So, at 25 years old, Gideon took the throne. Not because he wanted it, but because there was nobody else. And he swore 2 things to himself that day. First, he would never again let someone else suffer for his mistakes. Second, he would never again let anyone close enough to make him hesitate. Because hesitation, caring, love, those things got people killed. For 50 years, he kept those promises. He became the cold, calculating king everyone feared. He made the hard decisions without flinching. He sacrificed his own happiness, his own desires, everything, to be what the kingdom needed. Until tonight. Until a slave girl with no reason to care about him shattered every rule he'd ever made for himself. Back in the present, Gideon is standing at the window of Cynthia's room, looking out at the kingdom bathed in moonlight. She's finally fallen asleep, exhausted from everything that's happened.
But he can't rest.
Not yet. There's a soft knock at the door. Gideon recognizes the pattern. It's his head of intelligence, a wolf named Damien who served him for 30 years. Enter, Gideon says softly, not wanting to wake Cynthia. Damien slips in, his face grave. My lord, we have a problem. A significant one. Tell me. The priestesses. They've been spotted crossing the northern border. A delegation of 12, led by someone called the High Priestess. They're demanding an audience with you. They say they're here to reclaim stolen divine power. Gideon's jaw clenches. How long do we have? They'll be here by dawn. Maybe 6 hours. And Aldrich met with them secretly last night, before your resurrection. It seems he's been in contact with them for months, my lord. He's the one who told them about Cynthia.
Of course he did.
Gideon should have seen this coming. Aldrich has been playing a longer game than anyone realized. What else? Gideon asks, because he can tell Damien is holding something back. The council is calling for an emergency session. They want you to hand over the slave girl to the priestesses. They say it's the only way to avoid conflict with a religious order. That your personal feelings shouldn't risk the kingdom's stability. My personal feelings, Gideon repeats, his voice dangerously soft. They think this is about personal feelings. Isn't it, my lord? Damien asks, and there's no judgment in his voice. Just honest curiosity. Gideon is quiet for a long moment. Then he speaks, and his words carry the weight of absolute certainty. She saved my life. Not just in the physical sense, but in every way that matters. For 50 years, I've been dead inside, Damien. Going through the motions. Ruling because I had to, not because I wanted to. And then this girl, this slave who had no reason to even notice me, she saw something worth saving. Something I'd forgotten existed. He turns to face his old friend. So yes, this is personal. But it's also about principle. I've spent half a century making sacrifices for this kingdom. Giving up everything. And for what? So that corrupt counselors and scheming priestesses can dictate who lives and who dies based on their own agendas?
No.
Not anymore. What are your orders? Damien asks. Prepare the northern wing.
Fortify it.
I want our best warriors stationed at every entrance. If the priestesses want Cynthia, they'll have to go through me first. And the council? Let them meet. Let them debate and argue and try to manipulate the situation. But make it clear, this is not a negotiation. Cynthia is under my personal protection. Anyone who has a problem with that can challenge me directly. Damien smiles slightly. It's good to see you fighting for something again, my lord. I was beginning to think we'd lost you entirely. After Damien leaves, Gideon returns to the chair beside Cynthia's bed. She stirs slightly in her sleep, and without thinking, he reaches out to brush a strand of hair from her face. Such a simple gesture. Such a human thing to do. But it feels monumental. I won't let them take you, he whispers. I don't care what it costs. I don't care what I have to give up. You're not going back to being invisible.
Not now.
Not ever. And maybe it's his imagination, but he swears Cynthia smiles in her sleep. Dawn comes too quickly. Cynthia wakes to find Gideon still in the chair beside her, though now he's wearing full royal regalia. Not the ceremonial robes he uses for court, these are his battle clothes. Reinforced leather and steel, designed for protection while still allowing movement. He's preparing for war. They're here, aren't they? She asks, though she already knows the answer. The priestesses arrived an hour ago, Gideon confirms. The council is meeting now. They'll call for me soon. You should give me to them, Cynthia says, and Gideon's head snaps toward her so fast she almost flinches. I mean it. This isn't worth starting a conflict. If you say you're just a slave one more time, I'm going to lose my mind, Gideon interrupts. You are not just anything. You're a woman with divine power. You're the daughter of a priestess. You're someone who had the courage to stand up in front of an entire court and demand the moon goddess save a life. He pauses, and something vulnerable flashes across his face. You're the first person in 50 years who's made me want to be better than I am. Cynthia's breath catches. Gideon? So no, he continues. I'm not giving you to anyone. Not the priestesses, not the council, not the gods themselves. You stay here. You stay with me. Before Cynthia can respond, there's a sharp knock at the door. Not soft and polite like Damien's. This is aggressive, demanding. My lord. It's Aldrich's voice, dripping with false concern. The council requires your immediate presence. There are matters of utmost importance to discuss. Gideon's eyes meet Cynthia's. Stay here. Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone except Damien or Elena. Understand? Cynthia nods, fear coiling in her stomach. Gideon stands, and for a moment he just looks at her. Really looks at her, like he's memorizing every detail. Then he does something that makes her heart stop. He leans down and presses a gentle kiss to her forehead. I'll come back, he promises. No matter what happens in that council room, I'll come back to you. And then he's gone, leaving Cynthia alone with her racing thoughts and the growing certainty that everything is about to change. The council chamber is a circular room with high ceilings and windows that let in the morning light. Normally, it would be beautiful. Right now, it feels like a trap. Gideon enters to find everyone already seated. His counselors, his generals, his advisors. And at the head of the table, in what should be his seat, sits a woman he's never seen before. She's ancient. Her hair is pure white, her skin weathered like old parchment. But her eyes are sharp and bright and burning with power. This is the High Priestess. Alpha King Gideon, she says, and her voice is surprisingly strong. How generous of you to join us. This is my council chamber, Gideon replies evenly.
In my palace.
In my kingdom. I believe you're the one who should be thanking me for the audience. Several counselors wince.
You don't talk to the High Priestess like that.
But Gideon is done playing diplomatic games. The old woman smiles, but it doesn't reach her eyes. Of course. Forgive an old woman's presumption. I've come on a matter of grave importance. It concerns a slave in your household. A girl named Cynthia. She's under my protection, Gideon says immediately. She's a thief, the High Priestess counters. She stole power that doesn't belong to her. Power that was sealed away for good reason. She's her mother's daughter. Gideon shoots back. The power is her birthright. Her mother was a traitor to the sacred order. The child should never have been born. We showed mercy by simply cursing her rather than ending her life. But now she's broken that curse and used divine magic without training, without permission, without any understanding of the consequences. She's dangerous. The only thing dangerous, Gideon says coldly, is what you people did to an innocent child. Cursing a baby because you were angry at her mother? What kind of servants of the moon goddess do that? Murmurs around the table. Half the council looks horrified at Gideon's words, not the priestess's actions. Aldrich stands smoothly. My lord, perhaps we should discuss this privately. The High Priestess has made a reasonable request. Reasonable? Gideon laughs, and it's not a pleasant sound. She wants me to hand over someone under my protection so they can kill her or imprison her or curse her again. There's nothing reasonable about that. She performed unauthorized divine magic, the High Priestess says, her voice hardening. That is a capital offense in the eyes of the sacred order. The law. I don't care about your law, Gideon interrupts. In this kingdom, my law is supreme. And my law says that anyone under my protection cannot be touched without my permission. The room erupts in chaos. Counselors arguing, generals looking uncomfortable, Aldrich trying to calm everyone down while simultaneously throwing fuel on the fire. And through it all, Gideon stands firm, unmovable as a mountain. The High Priestess rises, and the room falls silent. Very well, she says softly. If you won't surrender the girl peacefully, then we will take her by force. The sacred order does not recognize your authority in matters of divine law. Then I suggest you prepare for war, Gideon says. Because you're not touching her. My lord, one of the older counselors stands, his face pale. You can't seriously be suggesting armed conflict with the priestesses over a slave girl. She's not just a slave girl, Gideon says, and his voice carries absolute certainty. She's Cynthia. And she matters. Aldrich makes his move then. He's been waiting for this moment, and now he strikes. My king, he says, and his voice is so smooth, so reasonable. Perhaps there's a compromise. What if we allow the priestesses to examine the girl? To verify whether she truly poses a threat. If she's innocent, surely they'll let her go. And if she's dangerous, well, wouldn't you want to know? It's a trap. Gideon can see it a mile away. But he can also see the council nodding, eager to grab onto anything that might avoid conflict. An examination, the high priestess says thoughtfully.
Yes.
That would be acceptable. We would need complete access to the girl for no less than 3 days. If she proves to be stable and properly trained, we'll consider leaving her in your custody. 3 days. 3 days alone with the priestesses. Gideon knows exactly what would happen. They'd break her, curse her again, or simply make her disappear. No, he says. My lord, be reasonable. Aldrich begins. I said a no. And this time, there's alpha command behind it. The kind that makes every werewolf in the room feel it in their bones. The high priestess's eyes narrow. You're making a grave mistake, King Gideon. The sacred order has existed for thousands of years. We've seen kingdoms rise and fall. We've watched kings who thought they were above divine law discover too late that they were wrong. Is that a threat? It's a warning. Then consider my response a counter-warning, Gideon says. Cynthia stays here, under my protection, in my kingdom, and if you or anyone else tries to take her, you'll learn exactly why I've held this throne for 50 years. He turns to leave, but Aldrich's next words stop him cold. Tell me, my lord, does the girl know about your brother? About how he died while you lived? About the choice you made that day? Gideon goes very still. What did you say? I'm simply wondering. Aldrich continues, and there's poison in his voice now. If this girl you're so desperate to protect knew the truth about you, that you're a coward who let his own brother die, would she still think you were worth saving? The room holds its breath, because everyone knows what Aldrich just did. He exposed Gideon's deepest shame, his greatest secret, in front of the entire council. Gideon could kill him right now. The alpha in him is screaming to shift, to rip out Aldrich's throat, to end this once and for all. But that's exactly what Aldrich wants. For Gideon to lose control. To prove he's unfit to rule. To give the council justification to remove him from power. So instead, Gideon does something no one expects. He smiles. You're right, Chancellor, he says softly. I am a coward. I've spent 50 years being afraid. Afraid of caring. Afraid of losing someone again. Afraid of being the man I actually am instead of the king everyone needs me to be. But you know what? I'm done being afraid. He looks at each member of the council in turn. All of you. You've benefited from my isolation. From my refusal to form connections or show favoritism. It made me predictable. Controllable. But that's over now. Because I've found someone worth fighting for. Someone worth changing for. A slave. Aldrich sneers. You're throwing away everything for a slave. I'm choosing to be human again, Gideon corrects. Something you apparently never were. And then he leaves, walking out of the council chamber with his head high and his purpose clear. But he knows this isn't over. Not by a long shot. Because back in that room, Aldrich is already making his next move. Already coordinating with the High Priestess. Already planning how to eliminate both Gideon and Cynthia in one brutal stroke. War is coming. The only question is who will survive it. I want to pause here for a second and ask you something. What would you do? If you were Gideon, if you just exposed your greatest weakness to your enemies, if you knew they were planning to destroy everything you cared about, would you stand and fight? Or would you run? Because that's the choice Gideon is facing right now. He could take Cynthia and flee. Could leave the kingdom to Aldrich and the priestesses. Could save her life and his own by simply walking away from everything. But that's not who he is. Not anymore. The man who walked into that council chamber was the old Gideon. The cold, calculating king who would have sacrificed anything for political stability. The man who walked out? He's someone new. Someone who finally understands that some things are worth fighting for, even if the fight is impossible. And Cynthia is definitely worth fighting for. When Gideon returns to Cynthia's room, he finds her pacing nervously. She rushes to him the moment he enters. What happened? Are they? We're going to war, Gideon says simply. The priestesses won't back down. The council is divided. And Aldrich has shown his true colors. Cynthia's face pales. Because of me. All of this is because of me. No, Gideon says firmly, taking her hands in his. This is because of a corrupt system that values power over people. Because of a sacred order that punishes children for their parents' choices. Because of counselors who see everything as a political game. You're not the cause of this. You're just the catalyst that brought it all into the light. I should leave, Cynthia says desperately. I should go to them. And this before. Before what? Gideon challenges. Before they kill you? Before they curse you again? Before they destroy everything that makes you who you are? Before they destroy you, Cynthia whispers. Gideon, I heard what Aldrich said. About your brother. I don't know the full story, but I know enough to understand that this is costing you more than just political capital. This is tearing open old wounds. Let them bleed, Gideon says. I've kept those wounds closed for too long anyway. Maybe it's time I finally dealt with the pain instead of just hiding from it. Cynthia looks up at him, and there are tears in her eyes.
Why?
Why are you doing all this for me? And here it is. The moment of truth. The moment when Gideon has to admit something he's barely admitted to himself. Because, he says slowly, in 50 years of ruling, of making impossible decisions, of carrying the weight of an entire kingdom, nobody has ever asked if I was okay. Nobody has ever cared about me as a person instead of as a king. And then you, this impossible, incredible woman. You saw me dying, and your first thought wasn't about yourself. It was about saving me. He reaches up to cup her face gently. You made me feel human again. You reminded me that I'm more than just a crown and a title. And maybe that makes me selfish, choosing you over political stability. Maybe it makes me a bad king. But I don't care anymore. Because for the first time in half a century, I want to live. Really live. Not just survive. Cynthia is crying openly now. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be important to someone. Then we'll figure it out together, Gideon says. Because I don't know how to do this either. I don't know how to care about someone without being terrified of losing them. I don't know how to open up without feeling like I'm exposing a fatal weakness. But I'm willing to try. For you. And then he kisses her. Not the gentle forehead kiss from earlier. This is real. Raw. Full of all the emotion he's been holding back for 50 years. And Cynthia kisses him back, pouring everything she feels into it. The fear, the hope, the impossible love blooming between them. When they finally pull apart, both breathless, Gideon rests his forehead against hers. Tomorrow, they'll come for you, he says quietly. The priestesses, the council, maybe even my own guards if Aldrich has gotten to them. But tonight, right now, you're safe.
You're here with me.
And I promise you, Cynthia, I will fight for that. I will fight for you. Until my last breath. Together, Cynthia says firmly. We fight together. Because I'm done being helpless. I'm done being invisible. If I have this power, then I'm going to use it. Not to destroy, but to protect. Starting with you. And, in that moment, they make a pact. Not a mate bond. That's something different, something that might come later. This is simpler and more profound. They promise to stand together. To face whatever comes as equals. The slave and the king. The omega and the alpha. Two broken people finding strength in each other. But outside that room, forces are gathering. The priestesses are performing dark rituals. Aldrich is bribing guards and spreading lies. The council is fracturing, with some members loyal to Gideon and others already planning for his demise. The storm is coming, and when it hits, it's going to test everything Gideon and Cynthia believe about love, loyalty, and the power of choosing someone over everything else. Are you ready for what comes next? Because I promise you, the next few chapters are going to be intense. We're talking magical battles, political intrigue, shocking betrayals, and revelations that will change everything you think you know about this world. You think you know what's coming, but trust me, the twists ahead will leave you breathless. Do you really want to be the one person who misses it? Hit subscribe and stay in the loop. But most importantly, we're going to see whether love, real, genuine, selfless love, can actually survive in a world built on power and manipulation. I think you know the answer. But the journey to get there? That's going to be one hell of a ride.